Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to show you some ideas on how to use shrink plastic as part of your card. I hope you find it inspiring. Shrink plastic is a great tool to use in card making. You can die cut it, ink it, color it, and use it to decorate your card with mini accent pieces. Like this card, I was inspired by Cinderella, where she sees her image reflected in the bubbles. Now you'll notice that shrink plastic has two sides. There's a matte side and a shiny side. Make sure you add any color or inking to the matte side. So I'm going to use archival ink here and stamp my image on 3 nesting circles that I've die cut. The largest one is about 2.5 inches and the smallest is just under an inch. When you ink, just be careful that you don't move your stamp too quickly or it might cause a smudge. You could also use StazOn ink for this, but I prefer using the archival ink. Now I'm going to stamp the same image with my Memento Black Tuxedo ink so that I can color it with Copics on a piece of scrap paper. And then I'm going to fussy cut that out. Meanwhile, I'm going to let the ink dry on my shrink plastic, which takes at least an hour, but you can always leave it overnight to ensure that it's set. Now I'm going to start working on my background with some Distress Oxides. First, I'm going to mask off an area at the bottom using some Post-it note tape. My paper is 4.5 by 6.5. Now, if you're looking for Post-it note tape, you might notice that it's also available in this packaging, not always in the lime green. Now, I'm going to start with the blueprint sketch, and I'm going to ink the bottom third of this panel, being sure that the top part, which I've masked off, doesn't get any ink on it. Now, once I'm happy with where that color is, I'm going to come in with my second color, which is Broken China, and I'm going to blend that onto the panel. Then once I'm happy with the Broken China, I'm going to add my lightest color at the top. So I'm going to add in some Speckled Egg Distress Oxide in the top part there. Now right now, you can see where the colors start and finish. So you need to go back in and blend the colors together, adding more and blending it out so that there's a natural gradient from darkest to lightest. This is really easy to do with the Distress Oxides, and it doesn't take too long. Now once I'm happy with the way this looks, I'm going to clean off my work surface here and protect the bottom half of this with a bit of recycled packaging. Use my distress sprayer and spray some water on top. Now you can put big drops or little drops or fewer or more drops than me. It depends what effect you're going for. Now I'm going to dry this off quickly with my heat tool and remove the masking Post-it tape. Now you can see our image will sit on there and our sentiment will go at the bottom. Now I'm using stamps today from this Hero Art stamp set called Bubble Bath. This sentiment reads, "Relax, it's your birthday." But of course you could use any stamps or any die cuts with your shrink plastic. The only limitation is your imagination. Now in choosing the colors for this image, I picked colors that would stand out against the blue of the background. Now for each color, I picked 2 shades and then blended them together. Now you can't use Copic markers on shrink plastic, so I decided to use Sharpies for that. And so I picked a very simple color palette that I would be able to use on the shrink plastic, as you'll soon see. You could also use pencil crayons or colored pencils to color the shrink plastic if you prefer. Now, when I was coloring the water of this bathtub, instead of making it blue or white, I decided to make it rainbow colored, like one of those multicolored bath bombs, just to make it a bit more interesting as a focal part of my card. And then to finish everything off, I added some of my sparkle pen all over the bathtub as well as the bubbles, just to give it a nice sparkly look. Now to color in your shrink plastic, make sure that the image that you've stamped is completely dry, and be very careful not to go back and forth over the black line as you color. I'm using Sharpies for this. The good thing about coloring on shrink plastic is you don't need to add too much shading, because when you shrink the item, the detail shrinks as well. So very basic coloring is ideal. Now I did decide to use some jelly pens in here just to give it that sparkly look, and also because I didn't have all the colors with my Sharpies. So for my card, I colored 3 images. This is the largest circle, and I also did the smaller and the middle-sized circle as well. Now once you're happy with the way your coloring looks, you can go on to the fun part, which is shrinking it. So using my Sizzix shrink plastic tool, I'm holding it down, and using my heat gun, I'm applying heat on the outside edge. Then I'm going to turn it around and apply heat on the other edge. This will cause the shrink plastic to curl and then flatten. Then I'm going to apply it all along the top and stamp down with my tool. After a few seconds, I can lift it up. And on this one, I've got a tiny little bump in the middle. So I'm going to fix that by applying some more heat. And then once it's nice and hot, I will stamp down with my tool again and get rid of that bump. It's a lot easier to use than you would think, and it's quite effective. So I'll just show you again here. So I'm going to hold down my shrink plastic with the tool and apply the heat on the outer edge. As it shrinks, I'm going to switch to the other edge and apply heat on the other side, and then along the top, and then I'm going to stamp down. And on the left-hand side there, you can see the finished size of the large and now the middle-sized circle. And this one, which was 1 inch, is our smallest circle. And after applying heat in the same fashion and stamping it with my tool, you can see that that tiny 1 inch circle now fits on the edge of your finger. Off the screen, I'm using the heat-proof silicone mat to rest my heat tool on so it doesn't damage my surface. Now I'm going to apply some double-sided tape to the back of my card and apply it on a 5 by 7 inch piece of black card. Then I'm going to put some foam squares onto my focal image here. Then I'm going to remove the backing from the foam squares and put it down on the card. And now to adhere the shrink plastic, you could use clear glue, but I decided to use glossy accents because I knew that they would dry clear. So I'm going to put some glossy accents on, which also acts as a glue. And then once I'm happy with where those are positioned, I'm going to continue using my glossy accents to add some bubble details on the card. And I'll just scatter some bubbles all over the card there so that it looks more like a bubble bath scene. So once I'm happy with those bubbles, I'm going to give this a chance to dry. And then I'm going to trim off the black card so that it's a very fine outline. And then I'm going to adhere this with some liquid glue onto my 5 by 7 inch card front. That way I'll have a nice white border around the card front as well. As you can see, this shrink plastic is perfect for that little accent on your card. I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's given you some ideas. Thank you for watching and have a crafty day.